Hello, once again from the Petersburg Church of Christ, and this is our online study of the book Muscle and a Shovel by Michael Shank. We are ready for chapter 24, entitled Why I Didn't Know. It was Friday night. Ryan paged me earlier in the day. He wanted to go out to eat, which was a good excuse for us to get together to drink beer and talk politics. Jonetta was working late that evening and would eat dinner with her friends at the office. I didn't want to go back to an empty apartment. Dinner with Ryan was always entertaining. I was still 5 weeks away from my 21st birthday, but tagging along with Ryan meant getting served at every bar and meeting well-connected people. I pulled up next to his Volvo and rolled down my window. "Where are we going?" We had previously agreed to meet at Union Station to decide where we would go from there. "Let's park here and walk over to the Polaris," Ryan responded. "Let's go," I replied while jumping out of the car. The Polaris was one of Nashville's premier restaurants at the time. It was a large round restaurant atop the Hyatt Hotel. In reality, it looked like a UFO that had parked on top of an office building. The Polaris had glass windows 360 degrees around the exterior of the structure, and it rotated continuously, very slowly, providing an ever-changing panoramic view of the Nashville skyline. The more you drank, the more confusing the experience became. Ryan and I sat at the Polaris bar drinking Mexican beer, eating salted peanuts, and discussing Nashville politics. He had just introduced me to a friend of his family who was also the current ambassador to France, Joe M. Rogers. Rogers was a fascinating guy. He was a friend of a prominent Nashville doctor, Thomas Frist. Frist had started HCA, that's the Hospital Corporation of America, and Rogers was a successful, well-known commercial construction contractor. Ryan said that Rogers had built over 200 hospitals for HCA, and he had also been the developer of Vanderbilt Plaza, the Third National Bank building, and the Country Music Hall of Fame. Then Rogers got into politics. He had served as the RNC's finance chair, served on Reagan's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, and had been a big fundraiser for Reagan in the '84 election. Now, Rogers was into his third year as the current ambassador to France, an appointment by President Reagan in 1985. What struck me about Rogers was his sense of sincerity. He seemed to have a genuine interest in his fellow man. "What did the Times write about you?" Ryan asked Rogers. "Which time?" Rogers replied with a little chuckle and a magnetic smile. 6 or 7 months ago," Ryan responded. But before Joe could give him an answer, Ryan said, "Something about you being the leading pick to head the Department of Commerce. I believe they said, and I quote, 'He's the man.'" "Ryan, don't believe everything you read in the papers," Rogers laughed as he started to leave. "And Mr. Shank, watch this guy," Rogers said to me while pointing at Ryan. "He'll get you into politics." He turned around and 3 other men were standing behind him waiting to meet him. "Ryan, regarding human behavior," I changed the topic while lighting a cigarette, "why, in your opinion, will masses of people hold to a set of beliefs without ever checking the facts behind those beliefs, without ever asking why they believe what they believe? I'll tell you what I think if you'll put that thing out." The smoke didn't bother Ryan. What bothered him was that I smoked. None of Ryan's friends smoked. Why did I smoke? "All right, Mother," I replied as I squashed the cigarette into one of the many crystal ashtrays along the bar. In the '80s, you could smoke almost anywhere. Ryan thought for a moment. "Michael, have you ever heard of Mein Kampf?" "Sure, Hitler wrote it." "Exactly. Mein Kampf is German for my struggle." It was Hitler's exposition of his grand political ideology, his 1925 masterpiece of propaganda. In Mein Kampf, Hitler said that people, by means of shrewd lies unremittingly repeated, can be made to believe that hell is heaven. People will believe that hell is heaven by hearing lies persistently repeated to them. Ryan was on to something. The waitress came to the bar to notify us that our food was ready, and relocation to a nearby table only took a few seconds. The meal was already on the table: steak with sauteed onions, baked potatoes mounded over with sour cream, extra bread, and tiramisu for dessert. Fortunately, the beer appetizers had not killed our appetite. As we finished off the orange sherbet, I looked at my watch. 8 p.m. I was getting tired, and the thought of seeing Jonetta pleased me greatly, but I dreaded the commute back to Bellevue through evening traffic. Nashville freeways were always busy, regardless of the time of day. Ryan and I shook hands as we departed from the restaurant. We agreed to get together the following week. The drive home gave me time to think. Why had I never questioned what I had been taught in religion? Simple. It came from someone I trusted, Eula. Eula represented trust, love, and authority. Therefore, there was no need to question her or her beliefs. My faith originated from the trusted people in my life. It originated from the particular church that those trusted people attended and people in positions of authority during my younger years. The people in that church, people who were good-hearted, sincere, honest, loving, and very moral, had received their faith in much the same way that I had received my faith. They had no need to question what they had been taught. Why would they? Furthermore, everyone depended on one man, the pastor. The pastor told the people in the church what the Bible said and what it meant. Now, if the pastor was in error on a spiritual matter, the probability was high that the entire church would be in error with him. Why? Simple. Because of the trust that people placed in the pastor and his position of authority. Isn't it normally assumed that the pastor was right because he was the man of God? Sure. He was the, quote, paid expert. Why don't more people question what they have been taught in religion? Maybe because most people, in general, just do not want to take the time and effort to check the facts for themselves. They say, we have someone to do that for us, or we pay someone to do that, or only a pastor can really understand the Bible, or I don't have time to dig through the Bible. Reasons and excuses are endless. In matters of faith and religion, most people cut off the end of the ham. For example, the Lutheran minister had told me Jesus is the vine and the many denominations are the branches. That minister was seen by society as an expert in religious matters. So the average guy would not question his authoritative teaching on a religious subject. Most people had done what I had done. They would just assume that the Lutheran minister was right because he was the Bible expert. There was simply no need to verify his religious statements. He is a high-paid, well-educated, professional clergyman, right? Why would I need to read John 15, 5-10 for myself? I did not think I needed to read it after a minister told me what it said. But think about it for a moment. What if I would have just taken time to have read it for myself? I would have found that mankind, were the branches, not denominations. I had never read 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 10 through 13. Those passages revealed how denominationalism was rearing its evil head during the first century, and how Paul rebuked them for such a thought. Throughout my entire life, I had heard that faith only saves. I did not have a clue that the only place the phrase faith only appeared in the Bible was a place that said that man is not saved by faith only, in James chapter 2, verse 24. I was beginning to realize that I had spent a lifetime being taught that all denominations were going to heaven. That is not Bible truth. It is not found in the Bible. But it's easier to believe a lie that one has heard 1,000 times rather than believe a truth that one has never heard before. I had spent an entire lifetime attending church and never once hearing any preacher talk about the church that Jesus built, began, and bought with his own blood, the one church found in the pages of the New Testament. I had been taught to repeat the sinner's prayer and to ask Jesus into my heart. The reality is that the sinner's prayer is not in the Bible, nor is the principle found. The sinner's prayer is a foreign doctrine to the New Testament. I had depended on my personal feelings and emotions as a confirmation for my personal salvation, yet as I read and studied the Bible, I found that this too was not in the Bible. I found that the opposite was true. The Bible warns mankind of the deceitfulness of the heart and feelings. It teaches that human emotions are not reliable guides toward truth. Before I started reading my Bible, I had no idea that being born again was to be born of water and of the Spirit, John 3, 1 through 5. As a Baptist, if someone asked me, how is one born again? I would reply, ask Jesus into your heart and you'll be born again. Asking Jesus into your heart is false, because Jesus said to be born again, one must be born of water and of the Spirit. And the fact that I taught someone something different than what the apostles taught was to be accursed, Galatians 1, 8 to 9. Why didn't I know these simple truths? Because I had spent an entire lifetime cutting off the end of the ham. Why had I been so ignorant of the truth? Because it takes muscle and a shovel to read the Bible. It takes a heart that is willing to dig. It takes an honest heart, Luke 8:15, that is willing to lay aside preconceived ideas. The Bible speaks of a noble-minded group of people who were noble-minded because they checked out everything they were taught with the Old Testament scriptures. The verse says, "These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so." Acts 17:11. As I pulled my car into the parking spot out in front of my apartment's patio, I realized something. I had spent an entire lifetime listening to what other people told me the Bible said rather than going directly to the book and reading it for myself. However, over the past few months, and for the first time in my life, I was now seeing what the Bible said for myself. I was studying the Word. I was digging. Previously, I had never been like the noble-minded Bereans because I had never searched the scriptures to find out whether the things I had been told were actually so. Again, I had spent my life cutting off the end of the ham. Up until that point, I had been the blind led by blind guides. Those blind guides were loving, sincere, honest, good, kind, moral, great people. They were simply misguided. They had never checked the facts for themselves either. When they actually checked their Bible, they read through a lens of preconceived ideas, notions, and error. Their trust in the leaders of their respective churches, combined with their confidence in the doctrines previously taught to them, caused them to accept the teachings blindly. I had reached my boiling point. All the things I had heard throughout my life were lies. Things like denominationalism is permitted in God's eyes. Jesus is the vine, denominations are branches. Everyone in all churches will go to heaven. Salvation is by faith alone. The sinner's prayer is God's method of saving mankind. Ask Jesus into your heart and you will be born again. Pastors are the religious experts and are therefore correct. Join the church of your choice because they are all approved by God. The church you attend does not matter. The way you worship doesn't matter. What you believe does not matter because we're all going to the same place. We're just on different paths or roads. Trust your feelings because they are trustworthy guides. Follow your heart because it cannot be wrong. Confusion, opposing teachings, and doctrinal conflict are permitted by God. You will make it to heaven as long as you accept Jesus as your personal Savior. A personal relationship with Jesus is taught in the Bible. They were all lies. I researched every previously mentioned premise. None of them are found in the Bible. None are true. None are biblically accurate. None have any biblical support. While none of these things are found in God's Word, they are currently taught by the vast majority of denominations. While none of these things are true, the vast majority of good people accept them as truth. Why? Because there is some good in every denomination, and there is some truth in every denomination. This is the cunning strategy of Satan. Satan is highly intelligent. Furthermore, he has had thousands of years of experience in deception. He knew that people would never follow him openly. Men and women are simply too smart for that. Instead, Satan found that he could lead people away from truth by having some truth and some good mingled with some perversion or twisting of the truth. What would be the best way to pervert God's will and devour men's souls? How could the adversary lead people into apostasy, heresy, and eternal destruction? What is Satan's strategy? Lead mankind into division, cause each division to hold to some truth and do some good. Let them get close to truth, but keep them just at the cusp of rightly dividing the word. Get them to think they're saved by perverting the simplest elements of God's plan of salvation. Keep them in this state until they die and the strategy succeeds. Keep people in just enough biblical ignorance, cause them to rely on their feelings and emotions rather than a "thus saith the Lord." Whisper in their ears, "We're all headed to the same place. We're just on different roads to get there." Does this sound unreasonable? Does it cause you to marvel? Well, consider what the Apostle Paul said. "For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works." 2 Corinthians 11:13-15. It was becoming crystal clear. Satan transforms himself into an angel of light. He looks and acts like a godly being with a godly message, while leading astray multitudes of men and women who are good, moral, loving, sincere, and zealous. Ministers would also be led away from the truth, not realizing their error or the end of their ways. These well-meaning, moral, zealous ministers would remain in their false practices. How is it that possible? How would they not know? Jesus said, "You do err, not knowing the scriptures," Matthew 22:29. Ignorance of the Bible causes good, moral, sincere people to err in their religious thinking and practice. God cannot and will not accept religious error, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for the doctrines, the commandments of men, Matthew 15:9. Vain worship is unacceptable to God. Vain worship is just that: ineffectual, unsuccessful, futile, without effect, to no avail, to no purpose, improper, and irreverent. Satan deceived Eve with one three-letter word. It was not a dramatic production. He simply inserted the word "not." Genesis 3:2-4 states, "And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die." Satan uses this same strategy today. He says you do not need to be baptized. There is not one body. Denominationalism is not wrong. Following your emotions is not wrong. God cares not how you worship. Your heart is not wrong. Religious division is not wrong. The church you belong to does not matter. Millions of people are not wrong. Jesus said, "Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." Matthew 7:21-23. Consider these verses again. Who are these that the Lord never knew? They are good people who thought, without a shadow of a doubt, that they were saved. Not only did they think they were saved, they lived their lives on this earth doing things for the Lord and in his name. In the end, these good people will be cast away into eternal destruction. Can you imagine the shock, the complete bewilderment? It played through my mind again. It is easier to believe a lie that one has heard 1,000 times before than to believe a fact that one has never heard before. Studying the Bible was removing my blindness. It was giving me spiritual sight. For the first time in my life, spiritual 20/20 vision was in reach. Let's talk about this chapter for a second before we wrap this lesson up. What are the reasons that good people who seem to fear God and believe that Jesus is his son do not question what they are taught in their respective religions? Could it be that they are taught by trusted and loving authority figures? They perceive these figures as knowledgeable. They see others following the same, which confirms the teachings in their minds. Additionally, people perceive no need to question due to their paid professional status. Time and apathy also play a role. What are some examples of how people hear lies repeated constantly until they believe they are facts? Well, repetition is the mother of learning. Hearing a consistent message establishes the message as fact in the human mind. Remember, it's easier to believe a lie you've heard 1,000 times than a fact that you've never heard. Finally, let's talk about the cunning strategy of Satan brought out in this chapter. He is an intelligent being. Highly probable that his intelligence is far beyond that of any human man or woman. Satan has thousands of years of experience in deception. He knew that mankind would never openly follow him, and therefore he mingles small lies with the truth. Satan intertwines some good with some twisting of truth, and the core of Satan's strategy is to create confusion, which leads to division. He allows mankind to think that he has salvation until his death. Satan attempts to keep good people in biblical ignorance. Again, this is chapter 24 of the book Muscle and the Shovel. We hope this has been beneficial to you. As always, you can find more on our website at www.scatteringtheseed.com. Until next time, have a blessed day.